Here on BLAB tonight. I got a little rearrangement of the computers here, so I'm a little bit thrown off. I'm on the right now, where I used to be on the left, but I'm feeling good. Blabbing tonight. I'm glad everybody's on. Just going to talk a little bit more about the home routine front. So if you're not familiar, if it's your first time joining on the broadcast, the first thing I typically do is I'll present content for about 15 minutes, and then I will release the seats or unlock the seats for discussion. So hopefully we'll have a good talk about unconventional ways to batch tasks at home. So I'm really looking forward to delivering this content to you. So I guess, what is 8:46? About another minute or so. Maybe we'll wait. I don't like to delay these things too long, but give people some time to join in. Don't have too many people on right now. It's funny. You really gotta get the word out when you're on Blab. If you just kind of pop up on Blab, it seems like the engagement's a little bit lower, but I think we're going to have a good discussion tonight. So I am confident that the crew is going to be on and we're all going to have a lot of fun. So I'll give everybody another minute to join in. What's everybody been up to? I'm going to tell all my 88 followers. I keep forgetting to let everybody know what's going on. Sandy Donovan, thanks for joining in. The one thing we do on Blab every week is I actually repurpose this Blab for my podcast called the Make It Snappy Productivity Show. So that's what we'll do for the first 15 minutes. And then when I open up to the floor, I don't save that for the podcast because it's kind of awkward. You know, the audio is never all that great or you never really know what's going to happen. So I definitely want to keep the audio quality to the highest level I can on the podcast. So that's kind of the deal. So I'm looking forward to hearing you guys' feedback, but thanks for joining in. All right. So that being said, I'm going to do like a quick, I'm already thinking about the editing and the things that, you need to do to make this thing right. So I'm going to do a little clap when I get started with the recording for the podcast. And I know it'll be like a new thing, but it gives everybody like a nice break in the audio and the timeline. If you know anything about recording, I don't know. I don't even know why I'm telling you this. You don't care about that. You just care about home task batching. So I'm just going to clap really quick. All right, we're ready to go. And this is the Make It Snappy Productivity Show. And I am just elated to be here on Blab tonight to talk about home task batching, ideas for home productivity. So, when you look at batching, it's always referred to from a quality management perspective, from a Lean Six Sigma perspective, that you batch tasks to improve your efficiency. And studies have shown, there's a lot of studies out there and a lot of different data, but in general, when you batch the right tasks at the right time, you'll increase your efficiency like tenfold. And you always think about this stuff for work. And I didn't really believe, I kind of conceptually understood the deal with batching, but I didn't really believe it until I started tracking my time in somewhat painstaking detail. I've been doing this like ongoing experiment of tracking my personal productivity, and the results for batching have really been huge. Just to go into a little bit about what batching is, this batching thing, what it has to do with home productivity, I'll paint you a picture, if you will. So consider a college student. There's a college student that locks him or herself up into a small room in their campus library. There'll be like 4 walls in the room. There'll be a table, a chair, their book, and maybe a notebook and paper. And that's it. That's all they have. They got no phone, no internet. They just study. So I'm going to call student 1, Angela. All right. Angela's going to crack her book open and she's going to decide to study for no more than 30 minutes. That's it. No more than 30 minutes. Then she's going to take a break for 5 minutes. And when she takes a break, she's going to remove herself from that room, go out, walk around, maybe have a quick cup of coffee or whatever she's got to do to kind of just not do or think of anything, not check social media on the 5-minute break, because that's going to mess with her head a little bit. She's going to walk around and relax, and she's going to come back in and repeat that cycle, study for another 30 minutes. She's going to do it 2 more times. So after 90 minutes, the results that Angela has received from her study session in this secluded, cut off from the world sort of situation, she's read her entire chapter. She's answered 10 practice questions, and she's even had time left to spare to review the content for the course the following week. Well, in contrast, we have another student, we'll call him Brad, who decides to study at home, and he's in front of his TV when he studies. It's around 6 p.m. and all the text messaging, Facebook, Twitter notifications, Blab notifications, they're going to go off about every 10 minutes because that's just kind of how these things go. Every time he gets an alarm, he's tempted to check it. So like around 70% of the time, he falls victim to the temptation of checking these different notifications. Well, there's like the other 30% or so where Brad actually resists the temptations and he continues to study. But the thing is, even though he's continuing to study, he's heard the notification. It's in the back of his mind. It's kind of like he's tempted to want to go check it. So it's there taking up that mental space. Of course, Brad's watching TV. So there's that factor. So the fact that he's got TV on, consequences that about 20% of that leftover time. So, he's only got about 30% of the study time, about 20% of that. He's glancing at the latest episode of, say, The Voice. Who doesn't like Adam Levine? He's really getting into the competition. There's good singers out there. So Brad started at 6 p.m. By 10 p.m., he hasn't finished his chapter yet, right? He started one practice question. He hadn't completed that yet. But the good news for Brad is that he's sufficiently caught up on all his friends' activities on Facebook. He's up to date on The Voice. He's heard the head-to-head competition or whatever. Pharrell won, Shocked America. Pharrell's team won. I don't know. Just The Voice is kind of resonating. My wife watches it all the time. Of course, I don't watch it. Yeah. No, I watch it just a little bit in passing. Where did I get off on this stuff? So anyway, the model that Brad is for efficient use of time, the model that he is by 10 p.m., he did also achieve the ability to complain about the stupid assignment his instructor gave him, specifically how he'll never use this material in real life. So that's what Brad's accomplished. And I say to Brad, go get a real life. You see, Angela spent 90 minutes killing it, right? Just absolutely just destroying it. She's doing awesome on her homework. She's caught up for the following day. Well, Brad spent 4 hours just like killing himself, killing his brain, turning it to mush. He's still got all these different things to do. He accomplished very little at all, is the bottom line. So why was Angela so successful? Well, the other thing I want to mention about Angela is she probably, when she left those 90 minutes from the library, she probably got home in time to go check her Facebook notifications and still probably watch The Voice, right? Well, she was so successful because of batching. She completed all of her studying in a single session. In 90 minutes, she was done. So think about that for work, right? So for work, do your reports get done quickly if your email notifications are on, or if you're tempted to check them? No, it doesn't get affected. But if you're deliberate about how you check your email, you turn all that stuff off when you're in the process of checking your email, then you check it in smaller batches. So that all makes sense. Doing the same task for a focused period of time will help get the things that you need to complete at work with improved quality, really, because you're focused. Like, you're not distracted. You don't constantly shift back. So the thing, after all that being said, that's my explanation of what batching is. And interestingly enough, that same batching philosophy can hold true with home tasks. So this month on the Make a Savvy Productivity Show is all about home routines. So if you're like a stay-at-home mom running around town, chasing down groceries, and you're dealing with kids' sporting events, and you got like the plumber coming over and all this different stuff, I wanted to present to you, now that you kind of get a better understanding of what batching's all about, some unconventional ways. I'm calling them unconventional ways, home routine tasks that you might not normally think about when it comes to batching. So that being said, you can put in batching into practice, just like school studying or batching at work. Your productivity at home can increase, and you can see those tenfold results that you can see at work as well if you're deliberate about it. And you might even get a few moments to relax with your family. So the first thing that I want to throw out there for the community is errands. I think as busy parents, it's really, really tempting just to go. And go can be really effective if there's an emergency. If somebody breaks a leg, you got to go to the hospital and just drop everything and get your stuff done. But for reoccurring stuff, the tasks that just need to get done around the house, just going without having any wherewithal of the other things you need to do of the similar tasks that you need to batch within that task that you're going out and getting on the road and getting in the car and doing, it can be a really, really big time suck. So one of the coolest features that I'll tell you guys about, and I'm sure you might know about it already, is that there's technology out there. I'm sure you know this. There's apps for everything. Well, there's to-do list technology. And for example, I use Todoist, and Todoist has the ability to you can assign a location to a task. So if you're traveling around town and on the east side of town, you have to pick up like cleaning supplies, or you got to go downtown to pick up concert tickets, or like you have this favorite sponge that you use that can only be found at this one store that's on the other side of town, like whatever that is. Maybe it's on the way to your in-laws or something like that. I'd recommend consider creating a task list by location. So for any of these location dependent errands that need to be done, that you do on a somewhat regular basis, because there's just certain times in your life where you go to certain locations. It requires like a little planning up front to think about this stuff and actually assign locations to the task, but you can batch that stuff and save just a boatload of time. I mean, think about how much time we spend in the car for just stupid stuff at times. So after when you set all the stuff up with your technology, you can give yourself the ability to receive notifications, and then you could take care of those location dependent errands when you're already in whatever area it is that these errands need to be done in. So it's a lot easier to take care of things when you're at that area or in that area, rather than just kind of running all over town like a crazy person. So one thing that I do, because if you don't want to take the time to hyper schedule your errands, because, busy parents, stay-at-home moms, you don't have time to hyper schedule your errands, but you do have time to think about when you're going to go and do these errands. So when you're going to a specific place and you have the location notifications coming in, if you give just a little bit of buffer for when you need to, like say you envision and you estimate it's going to take you an hour to go run an errand. Well, if you give yourself like a half an hour buffer, then when the notifications come up, when you hit those particular locations, when you're out running these errands, you'll have a little bit extra time to go ahead and take care of them. And you'll get a lot more done over time than you otherwise would. If that's kind of the idea. So, if you don't want to run around town all the time, now this isn't batching, but I'm a big proponent of outsourcing. There's task services like TaskRabbit that will basically, you can hire people that there's background checks for like a safety perspective. Apparently it's pretty good. But you can hire somebody off of TaskRabbit to do pretty much anything. Go pick up your laundry or your dry cleaning or whatever. You can use like a service like Peapod to have your groceries delivered. You can hire somebody to pick like tools up from Home Depot for you, whatever it is. It's not like I said, it's probably not batching, but just a really good alternative if you're not shy or you don't want to stray away from investing in the pure fact that you want to create time for yourself. Because time, I said all the time, is the only finite resource that we have in this life, right? So doing everything we possibly can, that's like the whole platform, everything all about is saving time for you busy parents out there. So the second one I want to talk about was bills. And if Deborah's on, is Deborah on? I haven't seen her in the chat yet. But she's a financial planner, so she'll probably appreciate this when she does get on. But there's a couple ways to handle bills with a batching mindset. So if you can take the time to automate your bill paying, you can batch the time you spend like actually setting all that stuff up. Be really, really effective. So setting up all your, like, if you have a monthly check going out for lawn care, electricity, water bills, school tuition, whatever that might be, any payment to a vendor who accepts a bank check, you can automatically have that withdrawn from your checking account and have it set up on a recurring basis, so you don't have to worry about paying bills. Like, do all that legwork in a batch. If you insist on using a credit card and you want to get your rewards or your air miles or whatever, then you can, in many cases, if vendors will accept credit cards, you can auto pay that credit card and then auto pay the payment of your credit card out of your checking account. Like I said, depending on the vendor. So like, it's just this automatic system where you can get the points and just pay it off. So taking the time to set up your bill payments all at once in a very focused way is a really good strategy for batching, like the home tasks that need to be done. If you still insist on having to pay your bills by hand for whatever reason, then I'd recommend just scheduling 15 minutes once per week to do it all at once rather than paying them as they come in. It's not a huge time commitment. You'll stay on top of it and you won't waste that transition time. Okay, this mail came in. I'm going to stop what I'm doing, stop making dinner, stop taking care of the kids and playing with them just to pay these bills. Like, just set up a time. And I always recommend putting it on your calendar to do it, just a reoccurring. And something like bills shouldn't take more than 15 minutes a week if you're on top of it. Another thing, the third thing that I talk about is like batching snail mail. So if you've developed your own like process for mail, you probably have a process for mail. At one point, we just bring in the mail from the mailbox and like stack it all up on a counter, and then just get to it whenever. Well, there's alternatives to that. You can consider going to the mailbox and sorting through it as you walk from the mailbox to the front door of your house and putting it into some sort of system. Say you have like three slots or bins or whatever that you can sort your mail by, like bills, junk mail, or file. Well, junk mail is just go in the circular file, right? Just get rid of that all together. But taking like that 30 seconds to walk from the mailbox to wherever it is you're sorting the stuff to get the mail sorted out, kind of painless. So then when you want to go and batch your mail, actually go through it, not at the time it comes in, like sorting through it, processing it. If you let that stuff build up, it can take a lot of time. If you do it as it comes in, it could take a lot of time you don't want to spend either, just like little pieces of time that you don't really consider. But if you had a weekly batching system that you would combine with filing, so like there's miscellaneous paperwork that just comes into our lives that need to be filed. Well, I think that with the mail and then the other paperwork that comes in from work or whatever might come through that we want to save for whatever reason, I found that those two elements, the mail and the paperwork, are really good to put together to process on a weekly basis. And that's like another thing, you just commit to about 15 minutes per week. And it's really not a big time constrictor, and it minimizes accumulations as just 1 week goes by. And nowadays there's really not all that much paper we need to hang on to, but there's some, if you let it go for 6 months, it's going to consume a lot of mental space and energy. So staying on top of it one time a week, maybe once every other week, instead of 15 minutes, doing it 30 minutes, whatever frequency you think is appropriate, it would be another recommendation. Number 4, I got 5 of them. So number 4 is meal prep. So this is like by far the most beneficial home batching task I can think of. It's also the most difficult to put into practice because it's complex, right? Like we don't want to eat the same things all the time. We want to have variety. We want to do it healthy, and we got to do a whole bunch of different things to do the meal prep. We got to go to the store. We got to find the sales. We got to actually chop vegetables and make the meals, and like doing that all at once can really eat up a lot of time. But so then there's just some really good services out there. And as a matter of fact, next week I'll have Allison Schaff from Prep Dish on the show, and she'll talk about her service to take a little bit of the guesswork out of it. But even so, it still requires like dedicated, concentrated effort to do the meal prepping thing. The thing about that effort, though, is it's not even concentrated effort to prep it. It's concentrated effort to set up your process and your systems for how you're going to prep it, and then tweaking it a little bit. So like it's a temporary concentrated effort, but you definitely need to be dedicated, committed to it. Like it needs to be in front of mind for the period of time until it becomes like a habitual thing. So once you're into the meal prepping thing, most people that I've talked to that are like habitual meal preppers, they never go back because there's no reason to go back. There's no reason to go back to that life where you're like thinking about dinner right before you need to have dinner, and you're ordering pizzas and doing the things that it's very, very easy to fall into that trap. So there's gonna be a lot about meal prepping. I don't want to spoil the whole thing on this particular broadcast, but it's one of the things that's really, really beneficial for batching and save a ton of time throughout the week and stress, right? And money, and not having to eat out, because you can't eat out constantly and consider yourself, well, I shouldn't make a blanket statement like that, but it's very difficult to eat healthy when you're eating out all the time. So the last task is something I thought about was batching television. And this is going to sound kind of strange. Like it's not like a binge watching Netflix sort of thing, but I found it with kids. This is particularly an effective strategy like on the weekends where we're tempted to try to get things done around the house and just plop our little ones in front of the TV. And now they have a new babysitter. Maybe it's Big Bird. Maybe it's the Iron Man, or like the little chicken on the Sprout show. If you have kids, I don't know what the chicken's name is, but it's really, really annoying. So like they watch the TV all day. Yeah, there's some educational stuff out there, and that's really good stuff. But keeping it on for our kids like all day, and even for ourselves, it causes like a really unrecognized, like you don't even realize it's happening, but it creates a tension in the household, right? And more so than anything else that you'd encounter on that day. So batching TV is like carving out dedicated time for kids to watch the TV. It's a little bit unconventional way to think about batching, but having the TV on all day and looking at it periodically as you're passing by it is very similar to like a Facebook notification on your phone. Like you get sucked in a little bit, and the time you spend in that transition between trying to get things done and then the tension with the kids, they get hyper when they watch that stuff. Like it's just TV batching is really good. Yeah, just cut out an hour. It's like carve out 1 hour a day for the kids to watch TV because they like TV, and a lot of times there's nothing wrong with having them watch a little bit TV. But that's one of the things I thought was a really beneficial thing to think about when you're batching. So that being said, it's 9:04. Like I said, I talked for about 15 or 20 minutes for the recording of the podcast. So I'm about to open it up to the floor for discussion. I can't wait to hear your feedback on this thing. But what to do about it? So like the reasons for batching, they're kind of hidden. It's not conscious for us to think about all the time that we waste from transitioning from one task to another, or to quantify, like I do, tracking all my time, how long it takes to do things, the extension and the just unnecessary lengthening of tasks because we're distracted or unfocused or whatever. We just kind of accept it. It's really a state that it's somewhat dysfunctional. So when we're making extra trips, we're just frankly, like from the outsourcing perspective, when we're participating in tasks that aren't the best use of our time, it goes unrecognized. So batching is one of those things that you kind of just need to try it and test it out and see how it goes. So when it comes like, what are you going to do about it? I just recommend just picking one thing. Just pick one thing that you've done periodically throughout the week, whether it's the mail sorting, like I was talking about, or meal prepping is kind of a tough one to dive right into right off the bat. But doing your bills one time a week instead of doing it multiple times throughout the week, or the errands thing, like when you're doing errands, just being really deliberate about having those lists prepped, knowing where you're going to be by location, and doing it in a systematic way. You really will save time over time. Does that even make sense? I don't know. Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much for being patient and listening to me blab about home batching tasks. And with that being said, I'm going to unlock the seats and see what you guys are up to. If anybody's open to calling in, and if not, I can just I can sit here on my microphone and continue to talk to myself. All right. Well, I don't know if Sandy says Sandy Donovan subscribe. Hopefully you're still on. Hopefully you enjoyed the broadcast. Roy, I know you're on. Thanks for joining. If you want to call in, now would be a great time to do it. If not, then, it's been fun. It's been fun. Anybody have anything to say? Anybody out there in Blab world? This is the crickets part. That's always a good time. All right. Well, I will, I'm going to share. I guess there's Roy. Well, thanks, Roy. Thanks for calling in, man. Mm-hmm. What up, man? You there? Roy, you there, man? Oh, can't hear you if you're there. Maybe something with my headphones or something. The tech challenge is always a tech challenge. It might be me this time, though. Let me look at my system preferences and see. We don't have my volume turned up or something. I don't know. Everything's looking like it's good. So, sorry, Roy, man. I can't hear you if you're trying to talk. I apologize for that. Oh, man. Well, all right. 9:08. I guess I'll get the word out that I can't hear Roy and nobody's joining in the conversation. So we'll just call it a recording of the podcast and reconvene next week. Let everybody know. So, all right, Roy. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the audio, buddy. One of those things sometimes. Well, thanks for joining, Roy. Everybody else that's watching, hopefully it was useful, helpful. I'd love to have a discussion. At some point, I blab every week at 8:45. I think I did a pretty poor job of getting the word out this time. So that's just one of those things that happens. And I guess we'll try it next time. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and sign off and tell you guys thanks. All right. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.